Hey everyone, this is Tom, and welcome back to Tropical Escapes at Home. And today we've got a very, very cool guest who is joining us, and he's really going to be addressing a topic that's big for a lot of people out there because it has to do with AI. And you've heard me talk about AI in the past when it comes to interior design, design inspiration, and some of the issues that people run into with it. And so I'll be checking with Kasper just to get his opinions and maybe suggestions about how people can avoid some of those issues. But I'm going to go ahead and do a quick introduction. So Kasper's story began with a simple question. What if any architect, regardless of budget or hardware, could visualize their ideas instantly? That question led to the creation of My Architect AI. It's a browser-based platform that turns 3D models into stunning, realistic renders in seconds. There's no plugins, no GPUs, no waiting, just design, upload, and visualize. So with that, I'm going to turn things over to Kasper. So Kasper, welcome. And why don't you just give us an introduction? Tell us a bit about yourself and how you came up with this concept for My Architect AI.
Thanks for having me, Tom. Hello, everyone. My background is actually not in architecture or interior design. My background is in marketing for software products. So the idea for My Architect AI came with the explosion of the AI technologies and all the different use cases that AI could help with. And one of them was generating images, either just from a plain text description or based on other images. And this is obviously a very common use case in architecture and interior design. So based on feedback from some architecture and designer friends, we started this product to help them visualize their designs much faster and much easier than what traditional tools do. And the feedback was incredible right from the start, even when back then, this was 2 years ago, the AI technology wasn't as advanced and as it is now, but still it was a huge time saver. This is basically why we started and the main benefit to our users.
Okay, so it is software as a service or software as a solution then. And I have to ask, is this available to the general public or is it available to our actual architects or people who own their own firms and then they have their clients?
Yes, so most of our users are professional architects and interior design studios.
Okay, so you do work with interior design studios too. And I have to ask, because AI is so relatively new, at least for me it is. I'm not a tech person. I don't have a background in AI. I didn't even really know what it was until I started getting into my podcast earlier this year. But do you have a lot of competition in this space? I would think it's something that's just constantly evolving and changing and hopefully getting better. So do you have a lot of competition?
Yes, there's other tools that do what we do. The main challenge basically that all visualization companies are solving is the accuracy and realism, because as they work different than traditional visualization tools, these two aspects are the most difficult to solve. So basically, whoever gets the closest to the accuracy of the design you want to visualize and you make it as realistic as possible has the advantage in the markets right now, because these are the biggest pain points.
From what I've seen out there, it's awful. There's just no other way. There's no other way to say it. I haven't had a lot of exposure on the architecture end of it. And when it comes to tropical design, there's a lot of research that I've done online just to see what people are doing if you do live in a tropical climate, especially in places like South Florida or in Hawaii here in the US. But then for people who live abroad, I do a lot of work with the South Pacific. And so I'm familiar with what people are doing down there. And it is very similar to Hawaii, but you're dealing with a lot of open air concepts, a lot of windows, a lot of indoor, outdoor combined spaces. And some of the issues that people were coming up with is that I don't know if they were doing this themselves or they were hiring people to do it, but the results they were getting back largely were not feasible. It would come back with renderings or things that were just not technically possible to do, or, I mean, they look beautiful on screen or on paper, but it wasn't feasible from a construction standpoint or a remodeling standpoint. So do you find that there is improvement in this space? Because, and the reason I ask is I'm a huge supporter of small business, and this is on an international scale. It's not just here in the US. And if you have a really good product or service, I'll do everything I can to promote you, and I'll have your contact information in the show notes and links to your website and whatever it is that you'd like me to do to help promote your business. But obviously, it's everything's got to be as good as possible, because you know how customers are, and people just want the best, and rightly so. So this is something that you're actively doing, is addressing these issues maybe when things come back and they're not accurate. And I guess my question there is this kind of like at the top of your priority list, is making sure that whatever outputs happen, that they're the best they can be?
Yes, that's very much true. And like I mentioned before, that us and the other competitors are basically have a race of who has the most accurate outputs. So we work based on the user uploaded designs, either a 3D view or an elevation from any 3D modeling software. And so our rendering engine just visualizes this design by following the geometry and the materials that you applied to your design, and tries to keep them as close to the original as possible, but just making it look more realistic.
Yeah. What happens if, when you're doing this, though, the system comes across something that is on the person who created the design, it's on their end, there's something that's not possible to do, or it's going to create some return that is just not feasible? You have to let your clients know about that. So is that what you do? Is that immediately reach out to your customers and say, hey, what you've given me isn't possible? Or how is that addressed?
Yeah, so usually our users are the ones who create the design. So if there's anything to revise in the design, they can do it themselves. Our tool just has one specific goal to make it look more realistic. And of course, there are some certain limitations that we don't handle some specific types of models or views, like, for example, master plans at the moment. But we just try to make it very clear to them to just avoid any kind of disappointments before users even start to use the program.
Oh, that's great. So then, yeah, there's clear communication there if there's an issue. So, because again, some of the people that I talk with, they're not architects or even some interior designers. They've come across ideas that their customers want, which they know are just not technically feasible, or it's just not possible to create.
Yeah.
So, and the reason I mention that is when I go out and try to find ideas for people, because I do a lot of research on behalf of people. There's so much information out there on the internet, and it's almost overwhelming, and it's too much. And so I'll pull together things that I think are really authentic and cultural from a tropical standpoint. Like if you go take a beautiful tropical vacation and you just fall in love with the place, most people who do that, they don't want to come home. And then when they do, they're like, oh, will I ever get to experience this again? And here in the US, people are horrible about traveling frequently. Vacation time is hard to come by for a lot of people, or maybe it's a budgetary issue or whatever, but I think for most people, it's not easy to make repeat trips to beautiful tropical locations. So what I do is I help people bridge that by giving them inspiration to create a space at home, maybe in a particular room or maybe the whole house, to recreate as much as possible, to the extent it's possible, what you saw when you were traveling. And to not get into the whole details about every single thing I do, but it's capturing all of the inspiration, what you see, what you hear, even what you smell upon arrival to a beautiful resort, before you even walk into the resort lobby. Once you're in the lobby, it's colors, it's artwork, it's furniture, it's plants, it's everything. You get up into your room. I encourage people to take pictures of everything. I'd like to develop an app, actually, if I can, where it's almost like a whole questionnaire that people have on their phone, and it helps them tick things off. Look for this, look for that, look for this. Even then, you get out by the pool or the beach or whatever it is you're doing, and you take all this inspiration home. And then that's where you recreate again to the extent it's possible based on what you've seen. And with that, it's helping people then. I help people pull together examples of things that I find online. And this is where AI starts to really trip me up. And some people that I've talked to is there's a lot of imagery out there now on Pinterest and on Facebook and just places where it's clearly not real. And I think the goal of AI is to be indistinguishable. You can't tell if it's real or not, but there's just a lot of stuff on Pinterest that's awful, and from a design perspective and a decor perspective. So my big question to you is, and I don't know if your software addresses this, but if somebody's trying to create a scenario in their kitchen, they want to do a kitchen remodel and open an area in tropical, but then the results they get back, everything is out of alignment. The knobs are just in weird places. You look at the stove and it'll have a plant on it. Or my favorite is somebody I was working with, and she wanted a window above her stove. For whatever reason, she just wanted to be able to cook and look out a window. You would be surprised at how hard it is to find practical imagery to get ideas. And you'll get curtains above the window, and the curtains are over the stove. I mean, obviously, it's a total fire hazard. It's not something that you can do. But is this something that your service addresses at all? Or, and if so, great. If not, do you have any recommendations for people about how they can get or where they can go to get really good design inspiration that's practical? It's real. It's not crazy, if that makes
Yeah, yeah.
sense.
Yeah, that's a pretty common issue with any kind of AI-powered image generators, which are based on the text description provided by the user. And these things that you mentioned just happen very often. And right now, it is sometimes very hard to avoid because even the best AI models will produce this kind of weird results. But also the thing is that you have a lot of control over the outputs, not just based on the text description that you provide, but also other settings that different AI generators provide you. And the thing is that many people expect AI tools to be like a magic bullet where it will just do
Yeah.
anything for you, you know, and it's just not the way it works. Just like with traditional tools,
Yeah.
that usually software is made to be good for some specific purpose, right? It's not like it will do anything you tell it to do. And this is what I see that people expect from AI tools, that they just provide any kind of request and they expect it to happen for them. So it's just a matter of understanding what a specific tool was built to do and what it isn't able to do, at least at the moment, and just move within these boundaries.
Okay. Well, that's good to know, because I think some people, like you said, they expect it to be a magic bullet, especially if it's just a text input. It's supposed to return exactly the image that they have in their head, which obviously is impossible. But I've noticed that some, I don't know if it's a requirement now from Pinterest or other places where you can post pictures, but they are requiring it to say it's an AI generated image or something like this, because it's just, oh my God, it's awful. I mean, I don't know if you ever get on Pinterest and look, but go on there and look like tropical kitchen or tropical living room. It's just a horror story. So I was not a fan of AI at all in the beginning. But again, that was more from like a design, a decor perspective. When it comes to architecture, building design, that to me is a whole different thing, because now you're getting into renderings that I think are largely possible. And you're working now with a professional, with an architect, somebody who knows by looking at a picture what's doable and what's not. So in that sense, I do love AI. And I think what you're doing is absolutely brilliant. And hopefully you can stay ahead of the competition, because I think it's going to be a pretty competitive field, just again, from people that I talk to, things that I read. One thing I wanted to ask you too, and I think you mentioned it, I've got some questions here where you mentioned, you talk about creativity. And I know on the minds of a lot of interior designers, there is a threat to creativity with this. And do you see any issue with AI making people become mentally lazy, so to speak? One lady I was talking with, she's a designer, and she said, I'm worried that if people go to AI all the time for ideas, that everything eventually is going to start to look the same. Do you think that's a legitimate concern, or what do you think about that?
I think it just depends on what you're trying to achieve and how you're using a given tool. Because if you know how to use a tool correctly, AI, it's not a limitation. It's like a multiplier of your creativity because designers can do much more than they were able to do before AI and can do much more in a much shorter amount of time. So if you know
Hmm.
what you want to do, you know the right tools for the job, and you actually spend enough time to master them, you can do a lot more and come up with much more creative ideas. Um, the problem is that very often people, spend 5 minutes in a tool and then don't get the result they are expecting, and then they conclude it's just useless. But yeah, you just need to know how to use it properly, and then you can do a lot. Um, so yeah, it
Okay.
just depends on the person and your expectations.
So for with what you're doing with my architect AI, somebody would obviously be consulting with an architect then. And so they're working with a professional and they've got that person there as a guide. Do you have any suggestions maybe for somebody who is just getting online and they're trying to find some design ideas? Is there a better, or are there any specific tools maybe rather than just putting something into Google, a text-based thing? Are there any good tools where maybe somebody can upload an image of what a room currently looks like in a house, and then they can tell it to do some things to it to give it a tropical look? Or, I mean, does this thing kind of even exist? I guess that's my big question is for somebody who's just getting online and they're not looking for working with a professional, what would you suggest they do?
So there's plenty of image generators. So for some really simple needs, you can even use ChatGPT's image generator,
Hmm.
which is very simple to use. And as ChatGPT is one of the most or the most popular AI tool out there, most users will find it familiar and easy to use to create some kind of inspiration designs for their spaces. If you want to get a little bit more advanced, there is a Midjourney, which is one of the most advanced image generators out there, and it lets you do a lot more. You can blend your, for example, image of your existing space with a reference image to create something completely unique. You can instruct it what to change, what to leave unchanged, and things like that that give you a lot more control over the output. And then, yeah, you just need to learn how to create the right prompts, so the text descriptions of what you want to achieve. And these tools just, like I said before, if you spend a little bit time on using them, your creativity, you will find that the creativity will just explode compared to, either drawing on a piece of paper or browsing Pinterest
Yeah.
using the existing images that people uploaded.
Okay. Yeah. Well, because yeah, the stuff that other people upload, it's awful. So it's called
Yes.
Midjourney. Is that what it's called? Okay. I made a note here because I'm going to look into that as well for people, again, who are just trying to do something on their own, a smaller project. So yeah, I really appreciate that. That's good. Because there was a couple other tools that you had mentioned in your profile too, such as Archicad, and then there's SketchUp, and then there's other 3D modeling software. So can you tell us about any of those and who uses those? What maybe would be the best scenario or use case
Yes.
for
So
them?
these are some of the most popular 3D modeling tools for architects and interior designers, and they are made to create the design from scratch using a web interface. So SketchUp is the easiest one to use out of all of them,
Hmm.
and can let you create a space from scratch really quickly. And then you can apply all the materials, landscapes, if it's an exterior view. And then usually what users to is they bring this simple design to our tool that lets them visualize it and make it look realistic. Um, these tools are not really made for amateurs and just home decor enthusiasts, rather for professionals who are designing for their clients. They give you the most control over every single aspect of the design.
Okay, so they could, if somebody was using a designer and they were using SketchUp, for example, but then their project was going to be more involved, and maybe this is where now they're saying, oh, I want to take out this wall and put in a big glass sliding door, or they're gonna start doing some major structural changes. Would that then be a reason for them to get with an architect and start using your
Yeah,
program?
that would. And even there are AI-powered tools that let you take a picture of your room and turn it into a 3D model within seconds. They're not 100% accurate and perfect yet, but the technology is really getting more advanced every month. So sooner than later, this will be possible, and you don't need any skills at all. You just take a picture, upload it to the web tool, and it creates the 3D model super quickly.
That's pretty impressive. It's going to be interesting to see where all of this is going to be in the next 5 to 10 years.
Yep.
So, but I'm sure you're trying to keep up with all of that.
It's not easy with the rate of progress, but yeah, we have to.
Oh, every day it changes, I'm sure. I mean, like I said, I'm not a tech person. I'm not an IT person, but I actually worked in IT for a number of years when I worked at a big major energy company. But I was more on the financial side and handling the third party resourcing and all of this so that all of the IT techie people could go do their thing. And I just remember, when you're looking at places like Shell or ExxonMobil or Chevron or any places like this, the IT needs just change. It seems like all these huge efforts go into updating everything to stay up with the competition. And then in 2 years later, everything is considered a legacy environment. And now they're having to do it again and then again. And so I would think in the world of AI, it's probably the same, if not even faster.
Yeah, that's true. And actually, the big companies, it takes longer for them to adapt these new technologies because everything needs to go through 100 steps of approval.
Yeah.
So it's really surprising to see how slow they are to adopt the new technologies.
Well, and regarding use cases for what you guys do, can you give us some examples of use cases just so that if any of the listeners out there are thinking, hey, that's what I'm working on. And, if whether or not they've got an architect, if they've got one, great. If not, maybe they can go and find one. But what are the best use cases for people to come to you with?
Yeah. So first of all is the rendering engine, which turns even a plain 3D view into a realistic image. The other use case is editing existing images, also using words. So, for example, if you have a space and you want to change some materials, remove some objects, add new objects, change the landscape, the weather, lighting, anything basically without any advanced 3D skills, you can do that very easily just by entering a description, like an instruction for the ad, and within 10 to 20 seconds, it is ready.
Oh, that's awesome. And I'm so glad you mentioned lighting because in all the things that I cover over here, from paint and wallpaper to different materials and upholsteries, I mean, I cover everything from A to Z. Lighting is one of them. And I think it is something that is often very overlooked. I do consider lighting to be an art form in and of itself, just through the use of natural lighting, what you can do with artificial lighting, how you can combine it all. And when it comes into AI, again, based on what I've seen, a lot of it just hasn't been very good. And this is a big deal for a lot of customers in the world of interior design. And I would even assume when you're getting into architecture and building, because it does make a big difference what direction your windows face, what climate you're living in, how cloudy is it, how sunny is it. If you do have south-facing windows or west-facing windows, is there a lot of plant life out there? Are there a lot of trees? Is there another building blocking your view? And I think what some people forget is that when they're trying to design, they come up with a beautiful rendering and everything looks beautiful and wonderful. they forget to look at the lighting. And then they go through all this time and effort and money, and then they're not happy. And now they're like, something's not right. Something didn't turn out. I need to repaint. I need to brighten it up. I need to do this. I need to add a window. And to me, it starts with lighting. So if the lighting in an AI rendering can be as accurate as possible, obviously that would be a great thing. How difficult is it with AI to create different scenarios with lighting, or if when a customer is uploading their info, their renderings or whatever material they have, they're giving it to you. How do you control that with the lighting to make sure lighting is as accurate as possible?
Yeah, this is actually a very common request from our users to have the ability to have as much control over it as possible, because with traditional tools, just mastering the lighting takes a lot of time. So in our tool and all the other renderers, they just describe it with words. Let's say that the sunlight is coming from behind the camera, or the sunlight is shining on the front facade. So basically, you need to rely on your words, but we are actually in progress of developing a separate tool where you'll be able to just drag a light bulb around the space to give you full control.
And with that light bulb, you'd be able to control the brightness of it and
Exactly.
things. And okay, that's something that I really want people to know about, because lighting is a big, huge deal. People just forget about it. They just assume it's going to look like it does now, and then they're done and it doesn't. And so, yeah, that's a good, very, very good point. So when you're working on these different projects, what can people expect typically regarding turnaround times? How does the process work? If an architect is going to submit work to you, what's the process that a customer could expect?
Yeah, so with AI tools, it just takes seconds. So when you upload your design, add a text description, and click the render button, the output rendering is ready in 10 to 20 seconds, and there is no other work needed from you, which is, of course, a huge difference between powered tools and traditional tools, where you first need to spend a couple hours on setting all the adjustments, like the lighting, for example, the materials and everything else, and then also wait for the program to process the rendering. So you're basically saving hours on every image that you visualize.
That's awesome. So customers just work with their architects, and they can get a pretty quick turnaround time then, and they're basically just waiting on the architect. While that person's working with you, it's a very quick thing than everything that you guys do. They do it through the software program, and it's just pretty much an instant return.
That's right.
Okay, that's awesome. So because as I mentioned, I'm not an official marketer for people, but I do, again, wherever I broadcast and put my show notes, or on YouTube, put things in the notes. Hey, if you're working with an architect, check out my architect AI. And I put some nice little, just some lines of text in there that briefly describe who you are, and basically just a free referral, like free advertising.
Appreciate it.
So regarding your business as it's on its own right now, I don't know if you mentioned at the top of the show, but how long have you guys been around?
I started in late 2023, so just over 2 years now.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and how have things been going? Has the response has been really good?
Yes, we are growing really fast, especially since this year, a lot of terms of accuracy. And so our users have generated over 2 million since 2010. This number is growing quickly now. So, the most important thing for us, and the thing that gives us the most satisfaction, is the time. It's going in the right direction.
Oh, that's awesome. Where do you see your company in 5 years from now? I mean, how does a company like yours grow?
In 5 years, honestly, I have no idea, because even next year, everything might change, because the rate of progress of AI is just incredibly fast, and every month we
Yeah.
have some new developments that didn't before and didn't expect to happen that quickly. So, yeah, we are not even looking at the 5 years
It's
perspective.
just to get into the next 6 months is more important.
Yes, that's right.
Oh, oh, I'm sure it's changing all the time. So, well, this has been very, very educational for me. What else would you like the listeners to know about you and about your company and um, where they can find you? Anything else you would like them to know?
If you'd like to get in touch, I just recommend visiting our website at myarchitectai.com. And if you would like any help or tips, either for using our tool or for ideas for what other AI tools can do for you, you can always reach out via the live chat and on the website,
Mhm.
and you get directly to either me or my co-founder. So, happy to have a chat there.
Okay, very cool. Well, I'm going to be sure to include that in the notes as well, just how people can find you guys. And well, that's awesome. So I've gone through all of my questions here. I think what you guys are doing is amazing. And it gives me great hope that people are paying attention to the inaccuracies. Again, not being a tech person, I'm more on the customer side of the fence here. If I was going to get with an architect, I know they're not magicians. I know there's no such thing as the magic bullet. I would just expect accuracy based on what's technologically possible. And I love that there's the company Midjourney and then things like SketchUp, because I had to look for things in addition to ChatGPT, because I do use ChatGPT quite a bit. I have not used it for image generation, but again, I just haven't heard really good things about it. So it's nice to know that there's some alternatives there. And I'm very grateful for that. And I just really want to thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule and for joining us. And I'm hoping you guys keep up with that competition and just stay ahead of everybody else. I'm again just so glad that you were able to come on the show, because for people who are trying to create tropical escapes, I really try to do it from a very cost-effective standpoint. I try to educate people about how to save money. It doesn't need to cost a ton of money to do this, but just to keep things cultural, very authentic, not some generic, you think tropical, well, what is that? It should really reflect a place that speaks and means something to you. And if AI can help people get there, that's just even better. So, Kasper, really, thank you so much for coming on the show. I think this has been great.
So, Tom, it was my pleasure.
All right. Well, you take care, and we'll stay in touch. I will put people in touch with your company there, and maybe we'll be able to cross paths again in the future, and we'll see how you guys are doing.
That would be great. Appreciate it.
Okay. You take care. Thank you.
Cheers.